Ladies and gentlemen, if I could ask for your attention here, this is one of the highlights of the evening. If I may have your attention. Seated to my left, Norma, a good friend of mine. I knew her 2 years ago through a kind introduction. Very inspired by her when I met her. She said, 只許成功不許失敗. Meaning, absolute success, I can't fail. I said, okay, understand. Lab, we're similar age. Lab founded a company in 1999. He sold the company to a major Chinese internet company in 2014. He then founded his own Hong Kong-based venture capital fund investing in Hong Kong and mainland startups. So you make us proud. I'm very inspired by you. So I'm happily taking on this MC role to moderate the discussion. I'll start with Norma. Norma, you had a really nice job at HSBC, being head of equities at the private bank. What made you sort of, do this, cooking platform, which has really nothing to do with financial services? Can you take us through the thinking and the journey a little bit, please?
Sure. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, everybody, for having me here tonight. I was in banking for a few years. I always tell this story. I only had two passions when I was growing up. One was the stock market, and then the other one was actually watching cooking show. So I spent, the first decade doing the first, and now I spend the past decade doing the second. I had this thinking about starting Day Day Cook back in 2012. The main reason because I wanted to inspire the younger generation to enjoy cooking as part of a quality lifestyle. Because growing up in the US, cooking was a big part of my life. I spent a lot of time in the kitchen with my family and friends. I kind of want to pass on that kind of culture going forward. And the concept was very simple. I would create content, we have the fan base, and then we think about monetization later. And I remember in 2012, I had the opportunity to actually look after the trading desk as well. So I was about to be promoted at the HSBC Private Bank. Hopefully, it's okay for me to say that. But and then by that time, actually was 6 months into starting Day Day Cook as a moonlighting on the side. I had about 100,000 followers on Facebook. And then that's when Lee Kum Kee, my very first client, reached out to me and say, I really like your content and I want to collaborate. And back then my decision was, okay, I can either continue my career as an investment or I can go all into running this startup. And for me, I don't like to do things like, half-heartedly. So I decided to quit my job and just really go for it. I think the key decision factor was I don't want to live with the regret. Like imagine if 2 years later, if I failed, I can always go back to my banking job. But let's say if I stayed in banking and somebody started a night cook and become really successful, I would be like, 我都諗過，我都想做, and then I would regret not doing it. And I just don't want to have that regret.
But this is more than just a cooking platform in Hong Kong. I mean, you have now, right, you are the largest cooking and lifestyle content platform in China. I mean, how do you do that?
Well, we decided to go into mainland market in 2015 when I met my first institutional investor, Factor Ventures, so another local Hong Kong-based VC fund. The idea was just, Hong Kong is great as a market, but it's too small to scale up the business. So, they kind of wanted me to think about establishing a footprint overseas, Europe or in North America. But then, back in 2015, my idea was, I really wanted to give mainland market a try. And I remember, Alan, the partner at Factor Ventures, telling me, wow, basically, she's saying you're a female entrepreneur that's not local, trying to compete in the mainland market is really hard. But for me, back in 2012, starting a startup in Hong Kong, I'm sure Lab has the same experience, it's never easy. So I don't like to choose the easy way out, I guess. So I decided, I really think mainland market has potential for what we're doing, and we're going to go for it. So we decided to go into mainland market. And I'm fortunate enough to have enough advisors and supporters and investors to kind of guide me along the way. one thing that one of my early investors told me, Deng Feng Xin-sang, he's the founder of Northern Light Capital. He told me, Norma, this is not how you do China market. Because back then, I was traveling back and forth between like Hong Kong and mainland. I was spending like Monday through Thursday in Shanghai, and then Friday and Sunday I would be back in Hong Kong. And then he's like, you have to spend 100% of your time in the mainland market if you want to take this market seriously. And so starting in 2016, I basically spent 90%. I wasn't able to do 100%. So I started spending 90% of my time there. How do we do China? I mean, you just have to go all in and really understand the market.
Thank you for that. I'll dig deeper on some of the lessons learned. But Leb, I want to turn this to you. I mean, you started a company in 1999.
That's my second company.
That's your second company,
Yeah.
right? You and I are similar age, right? I mean, back then, I just don't remember people, really being entrepreneur. I mean, people want to be a lawyer or a banker. I think that's just, the way things were. I mean, what inspired you to start your company so early in your life?
Yeah, I think quite similar to Norma. My first company started in '94. Actually, by that time, I haven't graduated. I was in my year 2. Okay. Well, my major is Japanese studies. Pretty interesting subjects. Okay. So my second year is exchange to Japan. That's '94. Okay. I think most people doesn't think, oh, '94 so special. What's so special with it? Okay. But actually, '94 is the funding year of Yahoo. And if you guys remember software called Netscape, they also find it by the time. Okay. So for me, I get in touch with the internet. By that time, I use Netscape, access Yahoo. I mean, by that time, it's just a simple page. But I said, wow, so amazing. So many information there. Wow, but I said, that's something we must do. We need with the future. But if you look back, I mean, if you look back now, by the time, that web page is nothing, okay? So by the time I get in touch with the internet, and luckily my elder brother, he studied in US, and he want to create a company like AOL, American Online. That company also probably not many people remember, okay? So we start an ISP in Hong Kong, yeah. So for that time, I feel that 一見鍾情啊, just you just see something that you just fall in love with it. That's internet, and that's why I start my first company.
You sold your second company to 21 Vietnet, right?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Too bad. I mean, we never create any listed company. I mean, that's my pity. Okay, I really think next time I hope that I will invest a lot and make them become a listed company. So both companies we sold it. Yeah, the first one in '94 to '98 we became the largest ISP. We sold it in '98, and the second one, oh wow, it's 15 years. We start in '99 and we sold it in 2014. I still remember one of my investors said, "Lab, I think it will be an evergreen investment." Luckily, eventually it is exited. Yeah.
You then you actually started Beyond Ventures. I remember sitting with you when you talked to me about Beyond Ventures.
Yeah.
Tell me about the name. Explain the name.
Okay. The name is, English name is Beyond Ventures, and we have a Chinese name, 海闊天空創投. So when I distribute the name card, many people say, you love the band? You love the song? I say, of course, we love it, okay. But that back to why we start Beyond Ventures, okay. In 2014, when I sold the company, actually, one of my investor and supporter, John Zhao from Homely Capital, he said, Lab, I think we should do something for Hong Kong. By that time, he think that Hong Kong need a Hong Kong originated VC, home based in Hong Kong, and spend most of the attention in Hong Kong startup. So we start this Beyond Ventures. So when I think about the name, of course I think about that Lion Walk, 獅子山, 維多利亞, 太平山. I mean, but this is a little bit, I don't know, maybe I think maybe more subtle and also iconic for Hong Kong. No, Beyond Ventures, Beyond, not Beyond Ventures, Beyond Actually, nowadays, even you go to China, a lot of youngsters, 90s, 2000s youngsters, they also love your songs. Yeah, so I think that's pretty iconic. That's why we use that name.
Turning to Norma, tell us something about doing business in China. Hard lessons learned. Takeaways. Stories. Give us some stories.
Well, there are so many different stories, but I mean, we're fortunate enough, like for the past 7 years now that we're into the mainland market, we've kind of experienced, two very big developments in both like the media sector and also e-commerce sector. Before, like we started out as a content creator, now we're a full-grown consumer brand, mainly because the entire ecosystem kind of evolved where, content platform kind of merged with commerce, right? And it merged kind of seamlessly in the mainland market. So with that, I mean, we were able to kind of grow and evolve into where we are now. But the funny thing is, as a founder of the company, I started, being the key person or the KOL in the video, right? So I started doing the videos, editing it myself, and now I find myself actually into a very different scenario, where I would go and meet with my suppliers, 同啲工廠嘅老闆一齊飲白酒. So I went to socialize with them and then drink quite a bit of Mao Tai. So I think it's a very different transformation, I think, for me as a founder, where we started out as a media company, now we're actually a consumer business.
Yeah, and Lab, I mean, you have supported many Hong Kong companies in your fund. Lab is invested in Hong Kong Taxi, that was sold to Uber, Prenetics, which we know a lot about given COVID, etc., Sense Time, and others, right? How do you compare Hong Kong entrepreneurs to mainland entrepreneurs in your portfolio, for example?
Actually, I mean, I just talked to Philip, okay. In our portfolios, actually, I need to define that Hong Kong founders in our definitions. That's including Hong Kong born founders, of course, mainland Chinese graduate in Hong Kong, also Hong Kong founders. We also invest in I can't pronounce the name. There's a Latin America country, small country. He found his company in Hong Kong. That's also Hong Kong founders. Okay. So actually, I found Hong Kong founders. I would say it's pretty dynamic. Dynamic means okay, we got Chinese mainland founders graduate in Hong Kong. They do business in China, like Sense Time, a lot of chipset companies. And we got Prenetics, Danny. Actually, he's a ABC. He can't read Chinese, although he can speak really nice Cantonese. Yeah. So we also have Hong Kong Tax, a local born Hong Kong founders. I will say it's pretty dynamic, but of course I will say the mainland Chinese founders are more, in my opinion, more entrepreneurial.
How do you help Hong Kong founders overcome some of the initial challenges? You must be a pretty active, VC person and not just passively putting money there, right?
Yeah, it's not easy. Okay, first of all, I assume a Hong Kong founder means born in Hong Kong, and the problem is first, when we invest, give the business model, it need to be go out of Hong Kong, just as what Norma said. I definitely should tell you that. If you want to do something big, if you want to, we always want things that just do one effort, but get 10 times the return. Everyone want that, right? So that's something that you need to go out of Hong Kong. Yeah. So I try to look them out, but for some business model, I know that they won't be able to go out, like Hong Kong Tax. We got Didi in China, we got Grab in Southeast Asia. But when we invest, I say, okay, you don't go out, how about we transform the Hong Kong industry? We transform the whole taxi industries. That's something everyone wants, right? So let's do it.
Being inspiring, right? Yeah. And Norma, as a female entrepreneur in China, tell us some of the stories of the difficulties you had to overcome. Were there any, or there weren't any?
I always get asked that question a lot, but I actually don't think of myself as a female founder. I think entrepreneur journey or the hardship that comes along with it is the same for whether you're a guy or a girl. So I think it's the same type of challenges. Of course, like, you know, they always say that a lot of VCs, they choose not to, you know, invest in female founders, and, you know, the numbers definitely is pointing to that way. But, I mean, I've had kind of experiences, which I really remember, from a Singaporean investor meeting me one time, the first time we met, and then first of all, he thought I was the assistant. He said, "Oh, is Norman coming?" I'm like, "No, you're meeting with Norma, not Norman." And and I remember we were telling him about, you know, us running the brand like an e-commerce model, and then he literally looked at me. He's like, "But you don't look like an e-commerce person." And to me, I'm like, I didn't know that you have to look a certain way to do e-commerce. So I mean, you get this kind of feedback, right? But I mean, there's too many problems that we have to deal with as a business owner. You just kind of, you know, push those little comments aside. So in general, I don't see myself as a quote-unquote female entrepreneur, and when I see a problem or when I'm faced with a challenge, I just deal with it as is.
What can Hong Kong do more in terms of engendering a stronger entrepreneurial spirit? I mean, broadly speaking.
Frankly, actually, I think the Hong Kong government already have a lot of initiative in the past couple of years. Yeah, and actually, we also see more and more Hong Kong founders start getting success, and I'm pretty positive about the trend, because we see like Didico getting listed, Kinetic getting listed, and a lot of these successful stories coming up. I mean, since this is about listing companies, yeah, I would suggest, frankly, for company doing Hong Kong market, is so difficult to do fundraising, frankly. But many of them actually is really doing really good. So I think from two aspects. First, because the investment trend is moving from internet platform to more deep tech, like semiconductor, biotech, advanced manufacturing, enterprise software, enterprise service. Okay, for this kind of sectors, I think just like the biotech, the 18A. So I think probably need special section for that in order to build the expertise to get earlier stage company. To get them financing. Okay. The other is for local companies. I think it's hard for them to get to really late stage to get listed. So I think a small board, small cap board, probably for different sections, or for the Hong Kong domestic market company, I think is needed. That's what my opinion. Yeah.
Norman, to the same question.
How can Hong Kong do better for the whole startup?
Engender a stronger entrepreneurial spirit.
Well, I think like in terms of building an overall stronger startup ecosystem, it takes, you know, time, right? I remember recently I was at a luncheon, and then we had a comment from a chairman of a LISCO, and that says he said that recently he find it very hard to hire, because a lot of fresh grads are now wanting to do their own startup, and they don't want to work for somebody. And my feedback was, that's great, that's fantastic, because when we started in 2012, nobody wanted to work for a startup, and nobody wanted to do their own startup, and that was kind of the challenge for Hong Kong, right? To create more, to create that kind of, I guess, culture for the younger people to take risks, right? To go for what they can dream of. So it's a great thing, and it took 10 years for it to happen. So I think going forward, now we have more success cases, right? So young people can look up and say, oh, I can also do that, right? And then we have more investors, because now they can exit, now they make money, they're more willing to make the same bet over and over again. So I think it's coming together, in my opinion. And of course, what Lab said, right? If smaller companies like us can also list in Hong Kong with good liquidity, is definitely a good thing.
So thank you both for joining us in this session. Lab was nominated, he won the EY Entrepreneur of the Year China Award in 2016. Norma is the co-founder of Founder Hong Kong, president of the Greater Bay Area Entrepreneurship Association. You make us proud. I'm very honored that you're able to share your journeys with us. So as far as the Chamber is concerned, we have actually opened a new economy chapter and have invited some of the new economy companies to join us. So this year so far we have Xiaopeng, Xpeng, we have Meituan, and we have Xiaomi, who've joined us as new members, and we'll continue on that direction as well. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for the sharing.